Hello guys, kamusta? It is October 20, 2022. I was out for 2 weeks. I was in Spain, so I couldn't actually do your Philippine market. But I have a special uh, class for you guys. And I answered the question, how did Wilson C. of Philequity Fund, the largest mutual fund of the Philippines, navigate the Philippine index, dropping in the decade 1994 to 2003, falling 50% during that time, and manage a 500% return. So I think that he was able to do this primarily because he was a small fund during that time. It would be very hard for him to replicate that outcome for 2022 till 2020, 2030. Nonetheless, because he's now managing, I think, well across 5 billion pesos or more. I'm studying him when he was young, 20 million to 100 million peso fund, growing it. Wow. So there's a lot of things to uncover and unpack. If you are new here, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I have the Awesome 10X Investing channel here. And I am actually online on Twitter here, as you can see, at Faces Trader. So I'm at Faces Trader. I made the thread in 1994 to 2003. PSEI went down 3.5 index to 1.5. A lot of people are scared because the markets are being expected worldwide to undergo a 10-year zero return. But actually, a 10-year zero return does not mean that there are no stocks that can 10x or 15x. And this is one proof how a fund manager in real life with real money managed to do that in one of the hardest crisis times as well. During 1994 to 2003, we can uncover that in 1997 to 2003, the dollar peso devalued 26 pesos as high as 53 pesos. Okay, so there's a 100% devaluation in the Philippine peso and a 69% decline. Asian financial crisis top to trough. So let's discuss how the Philippine market is actually, let's read on history, learn from history, and see how we will unlock the decades of PSEI outperformance to handle our funds in the Philippines. So let's take a look at that. Other than, of course, the simple conversion to the dollar, etc., etc. So let's take a look at this. All right, let me now present it. I've actually presented this to the CMTs in 2016 because CMT, for those who aren't aware, is a chartered market technician. They actually, we have a CMT summit coming out, Asia Summit November 5. So you can actually watch it virtual or live, even if you're not a CMT member. Let me just shout out that hindi ko na save. I have it here later. Pero for now, I'll just drop the links later on if you want to join us in the chapter meetings of charter market technicians. My charts would be lessons for us, but it's gonna be a hybrid. So you'll learn about the currencies, the charts, and what exactly happened during the 1994 to 2003, and what can we learn now that it's 20 years after. So let's begin with that. Lessons from bear markets of the Philippines. Okay, let's begin with this. Historical lessons. I'm Nikki, and I'm a chartered market technician as well. Let's try to understand the historical guide. What has the market done? How long do bull and bear markets usually last? How far do they go? How do they begin and end? So I actually studied what's the approach of value, momentum, dividend approaches. How does the crowd behave in a bear market? How does volatility fare? This class might take an hour, so bear with me, but I've uncovered so much data for you, and tune in, no? Just stay in. What happens when the markets become narrow with fewer stocks participating? What does a bad year in the market look like? So for the last 30 years, Peter Lynch said that bear markets happen. If you're in the market, you have to know there's going to be declines. If you're not ready for that, you should not be in the stock market. The stomach is the key organ here, not the brain. Do you have the stomach for these kind of declines? If you take a look, we've seen declines in the 2008 crisis, as much as 12% drop in a single day. In 2013, we got 7% drops. 2015, we had a 7% drop. 2013, we got a 6% drop. 2008, it's pretty normal to get the 8 to 12% index drop in a single day. So the other drops are normal, 3-4%. So that means that if your index is trading today at 6,000, a 12% drop is 700 points drop, like 1,000 points drop in a single day, etc., etc. So those are the kinds of sharp one-day drops in PSEI for the last 30 years. So yeah, so I tried to tabulate it. This is the chart for that. Did you survive the 2008 bear market? Maybe some of you have traded the 2008 crisis. Maybe some of you were still in elementary. I don't know. I don't know the viewers, my demographics, who are my demographics. But this is what it was, no? The survival of the fittest during the 2008 bear market. From 4,000, we fell all the way to 1,700. That was a 58% decline with a lot of of course, there's those the bear market rallies. You can see that 3.9 dropping to 3.4, rallied 10% to 3.8, drops back all the way here to about 3.5. There were some short intermittent rallies here, drops big, 20%, 10% drop, 20% drop, 15%, 10%, 20% drop, 40% drops, okay? So you can also see that the 6 months consolidation here during 08, 09 was what other people call the opportunity of a lifetime. It started actually closing in on October 08. So we're now in October 2022. In the US, people talk about a bear market lasting till 2024, 2023, 2025. So assuming that, you know, it rhymes, because usually the bear markets usually have panic capitulation in 2008. Some companies will make a low capitulation low on 08. Or October 08, or in this case, October 2022, or some will actually have the low sometime in March 2009. So you can argue that this was October 08, near latter half, so that was like a Halloween. You've seen the low of 1688 for the Philippine market, had a quick rally in just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. We're talking about a 5-day rally from 16 to 2000. A retest to 17, a rally to 2000. And for 6 months, you can see that for 6 months in the 2008 to 2009 crisis, we were just jumping up and down from 16 to 2000, meaning that there were some people who saw value already. There was a capitulation happening. And in this last 6 months, from October 08 till March 2009 until April, this was a 6-month journey where you double, triple, quadruple your money. So you might say, oh, the index was just going 20% left and right. But you actually take a look at several stocks during this time. A lot of stocks were actually doubling, tripling, quadrupling during this 6-month time arena as well. And when the market finally broke out from around March, April 2009, all the way to, of course, the biggest bull market that lasted until 2021, or 2022, depending on your gauge. I would argue it's Feb 2021 for growth stocks, around the November 2021 peak for the overall markets in the US. Then that meant that the Philippine stock index was actually breaking out of that range. Eventually, we of course knew that this 17 made a peak around 9,000, I think, or 8,000. So there, this is your Philippine stock index. When I was doing this, it peaked around 8,100 2013. So because of the US raising rates, if you recall, during the taper tantrum. Okay. So within 31 years, during my analysis on 16, I have not yet updated this for 2022, but I will. Just give me time. But I want to tell you the things that you learn from history. This is your 1987 to 1988. To 1990, there was those so-called black money crash. Of course, the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the NASDAQ bubble crisis during 2001 to 2003, the global financial subprime crisis. And actually around 2013 to 2016, I was already calling massive tops in the Philippine markets. So in my estimate, actually the Philippines is in a 10-year decade return of zero, which is true because 8,000, it's now what? We really never really broke 8,000, right? So for about 9 years, 10 years, the Philippine market was really in the doldrums. And your Philippine peso depreciated during all this time when the dollar was actually raising rates starting 2013. So you can see that rally or tail end of bull 2013, 2014, 2015. So that was what we were seeing in the Philippine markets. So Philippine bull markets, we talk about how long do they have a duration for. In the 1985 to 1987, where you got a 10x move, that lasted 939 days. This is looking at the PSEI. 1990 to 1994 was a great era for the Philippine stocks. It was a 3x move for 1,159 days. 03 to 07, this was the great bull market, the brick era. 1505, that was 1505 days. So roughly 4 years, diba? 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, 250% return. The financial crisis was solved with money easing, quantitative easing. 09 to 13 for the Philippine market, 147% return for 5 years, almost 4 to 5 years. And if you would argue until 2015, some would argue 2218 because it continued to extend. So the average duration of a bull market is about 4 years. If you eliminate the 1986 revolution, which had this 10x return, remember that in the 1986 time, during the EDSA revolution, we ousted the dictator Marcos. So the market was actually heavily in favor of the Aquino administration during that time. And the average advance was 310% x that 1986 revolution. Average advance was 453% if you take this into account. This was an outlier of effect. Okay, so Philippine bear markets, duration in days. You can see that when you have bear markets, the average decline is about 52%, a 50% drop. So around, if you're wondering how low would I assume the Philippine index to be, roughly 4,000 to 5,000 is, I think, where we can probably see some bargain hunting in the Philippine index. Average duration of a bear market, roughly 1.76 years. But of course, you could also be in a doldrum decade. So take note that in a doldrum decade, which everyone is obviously discussing, what happens? In a doldrum decade, active management is needed. Passive investing is not a recipe for success. Buy and hold will be dead in an investment decade of zero returns. You have to learn how to buy and sell. That's what an active era of a decade means. This year Philippine index, it looks like we are, of course, so around 2013, 2015, we were arguing, well, I was arguing that there was a significant breakdown of a long-term trend line. And during this time, I identified that the peak as 8-1. And that it will not be basically doing well. And you've seen the PIGS European crisis forced the Philippines to just trade in a range. And I figured out that the Philippines, if you just take a look against the dollar, not necessarily PSEI, actually we peaked around 2013, right? So 2013, we peaked there. We peaked at 8-1 and will not return there anytime soon. So, and that was true because even after 9 years, we never really reached or broke 8-1. So there was a double top and a bearish divergence in the dollar peso, EPHC against the dollar peso. So I was actually arguing a short for the Philippine index. And because we cannot short the Philippine index, we can only really do it through the USA. So you would short the US EPHC 3436 with the potential cover of 29 to 23. Actually, that was achieved because if you take a look at the Philippine index, so this is your EPHC. So let's take a look at EPHC here. So we're arguing around 2013 as the peak. That was it, 2015. So we can see that was the peak, right? So EPHC was just in a sell-off all the way, downtrend all the way for about, 8 years already, 7 years. And my target was 23. We reached that 23 around year 2020 pandemic. And nowadays, we've reached it 2023 on this great inflationary crisis. Okay, so target achieved. Okay, so let's talk about lessons. Let's talk about lessons, no? Okay. So time-tested guidelines. A lot of people, of course, are using technical indicators such as a 200-day moving average as a long-term trend line to identify major turning points in the market. And Paul Desmond said that it requires a close examination of supply and demand taking place during the decline to the market low as well as the subsequent reversal point. We also identify panic selling as a 90% downside day rule. The panic stage means that everybody gets thrown out of the bathwater, so to speak. Important market bottoms are preceded by or result from important market declines. And important market declines, for the most part, is a study in the extreme of human emotion. So intensity of these emotions can be statistically measured through the purchase and sales. To clarify, as prices begin to weaken, investor psychology slowly shifts from complacency to concern, resulting in increased selling, acceleration of decline, prices dropping quickly. More negative, psychology shifts from concern to fear, turning to panic, sharp lower. Investors are just struggling to get out at any price. So panic selling means people would just say, sell it out without even giving a price, meaning you're just selling it at market. So this means extreme discounts below book values, a stage for the next bull market, and an investor with a method to identify and measure panic selling will do the job, half the job of spotting a major market bottom. Okay, so we have a 90% downside day rule to examine bottoming out processes. A 90% downside day rule occurs if during a major decline, often spread apart by 30 days, or we studied this for a 1962 decline, 1970s era, 1973 to 74 bear market, in the 1987 bear market, the 1990 decline, the 1998 Asian crisis. The 90% downside days are a key part of an eventual market bottom, meaning you should see in a bottom, everything sells off, even PLDT, Globe, everything. Because this desire to sell has to happen far beyond rational valuations, and that is where the deep discounts happen. A place where, when you say 90% downside day rule, 90% can even be 99% or 98%. Everything just has to sell off. So it's an everything sell off. A second key ingredient to a market bottom is recognize that days of panic selling will not produce a market reversal. It means that if you lower the sale price of a house, it doesn't really mean that you will have an enthusiastic buyer, right? It means a strong demand. So after you cause the prices to fall, it has to go up substantially. A strong bear market reversal, a rally, and so on. Actually, what we saw in October 14 to 15 was a big drop, 4% drop in the index in the US, and then a 6% counter trend rally within the day. So those are evidences of capitulation and then rally. Now, that could be a short-term bottom, short-term, because a lot of people in the US are still arguing we have to fall 30% further for 3,000 S&P 500. Or some are even arguing even lesser than 3,000. So 2.7, 2.6, 2.4, 2.8, and so on. The consensus is around 2.7 to 3.2, thereabouts, or mga 3,000. So even at deeply depressed levels, the sellers will continue to discount prices further. And thus, from a 69-year record, it shows that declines containing 2 downside days of 90% moves usually persist until investors eventually come back in to snap up all the gains, all the bargains of the decade, producing a 90% upside day. So you get an everything sells off and everything goes up day. So that means there is a huge short covering rally where everything, cats and dogs, go up. Nothing goes down. There will be that day. And on which upside volume will equal 90% or more of the sum of upside plus downside volume. And the gains will be bigger volume than the drop. So let's say we drop 5 billion pesos, but the gains will be 10 billion to 15 billion. Merong panic selling para mag-sell downs, hit the stops, only to make people, okay, stop out, panic sells, margin losses, blah, 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 and then back to back. 10 billion pesos uptick, 20 billion pesos, meaning the gains would have to be accompanied with more volume. These two events, panic selling and panic buying, will mean the powerful probability of a major trend reversal. And the market sweet spot is ready to be savored. If you're wondering, kailan yan, hanapin mo yan. 90% everything must sell off, and 90% everything must go up. Without that, unfortunately, for the last 69 years, hindi natin nakikita yung bottom. Studying 1987 crisis, 1973, 1974 bear market, 1997, 1998, all the types of Asian crisis that you can talk about. How about the index? We talked about today, our title topic. So how does one navigate the market 1994 to 2003? Well, during this time, there was this fund manager named Wilson C. During that time, he was not considered Warren Buffett of the Philippines yet. He was still, I think during this time, he was still in his 40s, late 30s, early 40s. And you can see naman how negative the index was from 3.5 peak in 1997 all the way to 1,000, not even 1,500, sorry, more than 50% drop. As we argue, 69% drop to, guys. 70% decline, 1997 all the way to 2003 with a major devaluation of your Philippine peso. From 26 peso devaluation rate to 53 pesos all the way till 2003. 100% devalued ang pera mo sa piso, lahat naglipat sa bikim, sa dollar. Let's talk about how they handled it. How did this fund manage to do this, no? The PSEI from 1994 to 2003 did nothing but down, but the Philequity fund managed to go from 1 to 5. So Philequity was outperforming in the sense that lahat natumba 50% down, and yet his fund was 500% up. Where did the outperformance come from? Unang-una, guys, you cannot beat the market by owning it. Philequity fund opened 1994, one of the most difficult years to invest in. Dito siya nag-open, 1994. Nag-peak yung market, okay? So he had to handle it properly. Well, let's take a look how he handled it. My studies uncovered that 1994 to 2003, this was your index, this violet line, but this was Jollibee. It seems as if Jollibee was the savior of Mr. Wilson C. He outperformed looking at the level while the market was 23% up from 1994 to 2003. He was 300% up there. So there was a 15x outperformance there. So he was successfully navigating the Jollibee move. And how can I know about it? I didn't ask him. I simply took a look at the Vantage annual report. No, this is the 1997 to 1999 annual report. I wanted to study what he was doing. During the crisis of 1997 to 1999, even Jollibee suffered, no? You can see it dropped from a 300% move here to about 50%. So surely he must be trading in and out of this time. Selling, buying, and all the way. You can see that is evident here, no? 1997, it seems as if he had Jollibee, but in 1998, he did not have it. He seems to have Lepanto B here. He didn't have it in 1998. SMDC, umalis. WPI, umalis. Mondragon International, umalis. ICT, WPI warrants, Bell warrants, out. And then he went into Bell Corporation, SPI Tech, Jollibee Foods Corporation, warrants. So nag-warrants siya ng Jollibee from shares to warrants. So ibig sabihin, he became more conviction buyer pa for Jollibee in the sense na he bought the warrants, not the shares. La Tondena Distillers, San Miguel Corp B, Equitable Bank, DMCI Preferred, San Miguel A, BPI, EEI, AC Preferreds, EBC warrants. So during that time, Equitable Bank is now known as BDO. Okay, so that's 1997 to 1998. What can we learn in 1998 to 1999? We can see that, okay, so from 57 million market value, naging market value of 140 million, meaning when he was selling these, he was making money on the sell-off and he was positioning it here. So cost of 112 million, he made money here, okay? Now, in 1998 to 1999, with a bigger fund, 140 million, he managed to break even. Pwede na rin, no? 1998 to 1999 was a hard year. What did he do during this time? Wala siyang Ayala land, but perhaps because he felt that after the crisis ends, people would buy depleted real estate, he went quite overweight on Ayala land. If you'll notice this, 30 million from nothing. And 32 million was the largest fund investment from a 130 million investment. So he was not behaving like an index. Ayala land being more than 20% weight on his portfolio. Take note too, this warrant, 20 million over a 140 million, that represents more than 15% weight into, mga 12% weight, 15% weight towards Jollibee warrants. So that's quite a huge exposure. So he was not, as usual, behaving like an index. So I think that when you talk about a decade of zero returns, you cannot behave like an index. To outperform, you have to be either concentrating on a few conviction, na this will grow, and you will have to really exit a few companies that you believe will not grow. So he felt that properties weren't a good place to be in 1997 to 1998. He detected that well enough, so he avoided the drop of Ayala during the real estate crisis. Asian crisis means that interest rates are ballooning, debt dollar payments, di ba? Because you've got devaluation, he bought the bargain 2 years after, 1999. Then he loaded up on more preferreds. From 9 million here, DMCI preferred, naging 20 million yung DMCI preferreds. San Miguel, which represents siguro the SM investments during that time, beer, diba? So San Miguel beer, he was investing in the consumer. Wala pa yatang URC during this time. So his consumer would be a San Miguel Corp. Then he had Far East Trust Bank here, Ayala Corporation A. He bought the SM Prime preferred shares. He had these mga Central Azucarera, pero maliliit, no? 2 million lang. So, yun. So I can argue na he was mostly betting on the high beta weight of Ayala Land. So would any rational investor be able to do what Mr. Wilson C did? Let's just take a look at the news headlines during this time. Fast food chain sales, 1989. So that means that 7 years or 8 years before the 1997 crisis, everyone can see with their very own eyes that Jollibee was already miles ahead of McDonald's. Just take a look at the hamburger market in 1988. Jollibee was already 57% market share. The others 1%. Tropical Hut was 3%, Wendy's 7%, Cindy 7%, McDonald's 25%. There was also shortage of skilled labor seen. You can see that Jollibee continued to pull away from McDonald's by whopping 921 million system-wide sales, a 61% increase compared to 1987 sales. So, did Wilson C actually behave like a value investor? Actually, looking at the 1997 to 1999 annual report, he was heavily betting on a growth stock. Jollibee warrants, di ba? Hindi lang Jollibee shares. He exited Jollibee shares to buy Jollibee warrants. It's almost as if telling me, hindi lang ako convinced that Jollibee is the best stock in history, double convinced pa siya. And you can take a look at the 1998. Okay, 1998, Jollibee subsidiary sets a public offer of warrants. Jollibee announced 50% owned affiliate Quinby Resources Corporation conducting a public offering of covered warrants, foreign investors feasting on Jollibee warrants. So a successful company selling shares, gainers, people were basically loading up on Jollibee subsidiary warrants, no? 1998 crisis. So it remains to be seen that if people say, patay na yung index, wag na natin, kalimutan natin yung stock market. Layan, zero return decade. Somehow, somewhere, Wilson C., who was in the market, felt Jollibee is not to be included in the wag ng pansinin. In fact, he bought a lot of it. And take note, in year 2001, even after the crisis Nasdaq bubble, historic 400 store, Jollibee opens. Taste that conquered the nation. Congratulations all over, di ba? We can see that in the all newspapers. Look at the congrats, the different faces of Jollibee, the new store designs defining dining pleasure beyond borders. So we can see that there were all congratulations, March, April, May 2001. I took a look at all these, browsing all these archives. Year 2001, the McDonald's Jollibee war heats up. McDonald's is investing 3.5 billion pesos to expand the Philippine operations. But analysts are saying it has much to do to catch up with the country's top hamburger chain. It reminds me a little bit of the Netflix Disney war era now, no, and the streaming war, where, of course, Disney is heating up the war. So yun, we're seeing that massive war move between there. And Jollibee is, of course, opposing a global giant. So a lot of the BPI people, let's read this. They're playing catch up with Jollibee, but the problem is Jollibee is not stopping. They will need more than 3.5 billion pesos just to match Jollibee, which in good times or bad times expands. So in a recession, Jollibee basically expanded, the sales earnings expanded. So what happened to the stock price? We'll discuss about it, but look at the 1999 to 2000 annual report of JFC. Current assets, their cash flows were about 4 billion pesos. We can see that they were stocking up on inventories, no, 500 million to 700 million. Accounts receivable, manageable. Property and equipment. So investments and advances, Jollibee was continuing to basically expand, no? So yun nga, nag-increase siya ng stores. And you'll notice that the stock price was trading at 10 times PE. even if revenues continue to grow. Look at the income from operations, no? It was rallying from 600 million to 900 million income for Jollibee with a 10 billion peso sales. So they were managing their interest expenses very little, raw materials and packaging, others operating expenses, and you've got very high net operating cash flows and a buyback program. So even in a bear market, Jollibee was trading 10 times PE, 50% growth rate, and expanding. So it was a typical growth stock, a growth stock at a very bargain price. It reminds me of the 1980s era, 1970s to 1980s, di ba? What you will learn if you study is that Warren Buffett purchased Coca-Cola in 1980s at $1.50 or $1.80. Of course, during that time, I don't think even Warren Buffett knew that his investment will yield him 30x return. So basically, right now, Coca-Cola is 55 pesos, $55, pays a dividend of about $1.50, $1.60. Meaning, he gets 100% return on his dividend alone. Jollibee during this time, you will be buying it at 9 to 11 pesos. Jollibee today pays dividend, but it's just 2 pesos. So, hindi naman 11 pesos magbigay si Jollibee. But either way, no, those are the things that a growing dividend company or a growing earnings type of company can look like in a long-term valuation. There are certain variables that have proven over time that shows a predictive capability to select outperforming securities on the whole. The stock price outperforms, the fundamentals are growing very well, management is great, add cheap valuations, you will make money. So you can see that as Wilson C. loaded up 1997, 1998, diba, annual report, he loaded up on Jollibee warrants. In year 2000, Jollibee shares are open to foreigners. He could have sold, diba, the warrants to these foreigners, but he remained in play, holding on to those warrants, which became corresponding to the shares that he could buy for Jollibee. And if you'll notice, spot the outperformance of Jollibee, this black line is your PSEI, right? PSEI here is the black line. And then this is your Jollibee. Look at that, no? When the index fell down massively here, Sorry. Oo, tama. Ito yung presyo eh. 20 pesos to 10 pesos, nag-23 pesos, bumagsak sa 9 pesos. Jollibee, I believe, IPO'd dito 1993, 1994. Ito siya, oh. So 6 pesos low during this time. 6 nag-28. 28, bumagsak dito sa 9. Bumagsak pa lower. Dito lang sa 950. And then when the market was already recovering from 9 pesos to 40 pesos. Nag-recover, no? Tapos bumili siya ng warrants during this time, 1998. Okay. Notice also that the top of 2006 for Jollibee was actually predicted by Fibonacci 1996 time. During 1996, the top of 42. May top dito si Jollibee. The perfect outperformance, if you want to get the perfect entry, the perfect time to load up will be when technicals and fundamentals align. Nung year 2001, meron kang fundamental shift na with the market. So 9 pesos, you would buy and sell it, no? 9 pesos buy, sell 20 pesos, buy back 9 pesos, then eventually 9 pesos. Even when the index was falling down, notice the outperformance. The black line is the index, bumabagsak yung index, but your Jollibee was already going up and away from 9 pesos to 40 pesos. Okay. Jollibee shares, well, during this time, I was studying it in 2016, outperformer, 226. Of course, I wouldn't know in 2018, they will buy Coffee Bean, they would buy all of these smash burgers, and they borrowed a lot of money, a lot of $500 million of debt for the Coffee Bean tea leaf. That happened in year 2020, 2021. So the Jollibee then in year 1994 to 2003, even until 2016, is very different from the Jollibee today. We are seeing that the Jollibee today has a lot of dollar debts. It has a lot of international companies. Obviously, it's not anymore a domestic firm. It's doing 30% international sales now. So, yon. But this was the Jollibee effect. Another thing that we can learn from Wilson C's fund, you can see 1994 to 2003. This is Globe Telecom. How much was Globe Telecom during this era? Remember, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, mobile phones were just new. Telecommunications was new. So telecommunications is an innovative sector during that time. Hindi pa siya yung cash dividend that we now know. It used to be a small cap back then. Globe was not even in the index during that time. It delivered the outperformance of Philequity fund if you really study that era. The volatility of these stocks were very crazy, guys. 200 pesos Globe went 1,200 pesos in just a matter of 5 years. And then fell down, no? So ang gugulo ng Globe. Globe was like a basura name, a penny stock name. So what's the analysis that we can see here, no? I think during the 1920s era, it's what, you know, the discussion is about the mobile phone, the internet era. Nowadays, 2020 to 2030, 2040 era, we're all discussing about energy transition. So the hype phase now is all in the solars, renewables, nuclear, electric vehicles. No, so you have to understand, Apple is the hype era, of course, during this year 2000s era, Amazon and Apple. And nowadays, of course, it's the Teslas that are the hype. So you have to understand, nasang cycle ka and nasan yung innovation. Nothing wrong, of course, if you are buying value, but we can see how Wilson C managed that volatility. It was hard. This is the movement of the stock price of Globe versus PSEI. The blue line is your PSEI. So the PSEI was going up and down, no, gulo-gulo. So he had to be trading this market. He couldn't do this with a buy and hold because 400 is 600, buy and hold. But it moved 3x here, fell down here, then moved up here, diba? So it's a buy and sell type of market. 1999 to 2001, let's talk about the Nasdaq bubble. Again, checking into the annual report of Philequity, I saw that in the 1999 to 2001, he seems to have bought Globe, and then he bought Manulife, Sun Life, DMCI Preferreds. So we can see that he was very defensive mode, loading up on Manulife, Sun Life, DMC Preferreds, SPI Technologies here. So I don't even know what SPI Technologies is, pero those were his top four in terms of the shares and the costs, diba? Okay, so notice also in the 2000 to 2002 era, so ito yon, no? The blue line is the index, but this was Globe, clear out performance. So notice PSEI falling but Globe held. That is where Wilson C actually loaded up. So inaral ko nandito sa 2,000 bumibili siya. So he was buying 400 pesos Globe. So nag 100% si Globe, 400 to 700, bumagsak ng 400, bumalik 700. So I surmise he was buying, selling, no? In fact, he started investing 2.4 million pesos in year 2000. He bought 9.4 million pesos in 2002. So he bought here, siguro sumasample size muna siya, 2.4 million. That's small in terms of his fund, but it's not that small. It was a 100 million peso fund already during this time. So it was a 2%, diba? Then here, he went 9% weighting on Globe. Yan, makikita mo yan. From year 2001, Globe, 2 million. Tapos here, 9 million na yung cost. Nag-quadruple up siya. Hindi lang double up, quadruple up. Double up. And then you can see, nag-quadruple up siya sa ICT. From 3 million to 13 million. Highlands Prime, from nothing to 9 million. And so on, no? Ayala Corp A, Ayala Land. Usually, after 3 years, so after a Asian crisis or a bubble, he usually buys on the third year ng real estate. So I would surmise, guys, no, just studying through history, if 2022 is the start of the drop, 2024 is where real estate is gonna be very attractive. Mga 3 years after, 2024 or 2025. By then, lahat ng dapat mag-default, nag-default na. Lahat ng hindi makabayad ng interest debt, tapos na yon, dapat na write-off na from the banks. And they start the recovery 2024, 2025. You know, just learning from history. I'm not saying that history will repeat, but it rhymes. The 2003 PLDT investment, what happened there? I took a look. So SPI Technology, I think, was also part of PLDT. So binili ata ni PLDT si SPI. I think that's the BPO. We can clearly see that Wilson C must have felt na the dollar peso was devaluing so much, kailangan mo ng dollar earners, and PLDT with the BPO was obviously earning in dollars. So PLDT fund actually made Philequity fund 10x its money in 4 years, no? By taking a look, this went from 400 pesos to 2,600 pesos for PLDT. More than 5x. He purchased it actually at 200. So binasa ko ano presyo niya eh. Nandito siya sa mga 200. The low was actually 100. So he was able to buy 100% higher than the low. So pwede kang mag-miss out. Kumbaga, let's say, if you think that it's really the best investment of the decade, you could actually miss out on the first 100% and still make a ton of money. Obviously, kung sobrang galing niya, nabili niya dito sa 100 pesos si PLDT na nag-25x. He didn't actually buy at 100. He was buying dito na sa 200. But it still made quite a good amount of money for him, right? So PLDT, of course, he made money also on Globe Telecom. What's the two companies that we can say defined the 2000 arena? That's the technology firms, no? The communication, my mobile phone. So, no time na yun, Nokia pa nga eh. So, what can we learn? Is it true that in a crisis that you shun away all these innovative names? I think if they drop 90%, as you can see, Globe went from 1,1 to 100. This went from 100 to 2,000. So Globe did that, PLDT did that. So that means that growth names after an 80-90% demolition club is something to take a look at, no? Especially if it's earning money and it has a real technology. This time, people were not sure how many people would buy mobile phones. Just like how some people are arguing, how many people will buy electric vehicles? How many people will go solar? How many people will go renewable? So one of his many great investments was PLDT. It can be clearly seen here, 2002, 0, and then 2003, load up. Globe and PLDT was his largest weight. What I can like, if ever, if there's something that I would argue here, not because I know Mr. Wilson C., I studied this without his knowledge, obviously. I studied this work for myself. I wanted to know how a great fund manager manages money for homework, studying lang, research. He loaded up on dollar earners. If it's not clear to you, no? ICT is a dollar earner. It's a global GDP growth arena. But he only bought ICT. He was loading up on it all the time, no? And he loaded up on PLDT and Globe in 2003. So he was really confident, or rather overweight. 40 million over 200 million, that's a very huge investment. 20% in telecoms. How many people are just mimicking the index? The index has 5% PLDT. I'll go 5% PLDT. He didn't do that. I don't even know if the index had PLDT and Globe during year 2003. I'm not quite sure. And if ever there was, how much weight did the index have in PLDT and Globe? So what I can tell you is this was alpha. He was behaving super alpha, pure alpha yan. Also, in 2003 to 2004, just studying it, biglang DMCI. So from PLDT Globe, top weight, biglang DMCI. So he sold his PLDT and Globe when it was peaking siguro. We still have it, pero nag-convert siya to DMCI and ICT. And then Petron, no? May digital na siya rito. Digital eventually was bought by PLDT, no? That was the talk and text. So yan, it became DMC, ICT, largest as well as iBank. What I can see is that year over year, just by looking at the annual reports, malaki yung value turnover ni Boss Wilson C. here. Papalit-palit yung laman ng portfolio. No? Minsan preferred shares, minsan dollar telecoms, ICT, minsan, boom, nag-DMCI. Okay. In ICT was purchased in year 2001. Let's take a look at ICT. He bought it at 1 peso. ICT. He made a large buy on 2002, held on further at 2003. Look at how the stock held on the years 2002 to 2003, no? 300% from piso to 3 pesos. Imagine that, palaging alpha. Of course, ICT now is what? 170 pesos. So the results of holding on to your winners, OMG, no? 50 centavos to 16.75 even if you're just looking at 2001 till 2006. Of course, we now know na Razon eventually is now the largest tycoon in the Philippines. Enrique Razon now owns Bloomberry, the Soler. He now owns the water infrastructure of the Ayala's partnership with Manila Water. Razon is now bigger than what he were. So he detected the tycoons of the future. No? You can see the movements, no? Ayan, ICT. DMCI, Philequity Fund purchased DMCI at 5 centavos. Ito, grabe, nagulat ako. It went to 1 peso 20 cents. 24x, guys. 2,400% return in a market that did nothing. The market was nothing, but DMCI hit 24x. So surely there was outperformance. So are there new highs in a bearish environment? Can they be sustained? Are they the leaders in the next bull run? So I was studying the rest na to eh. I was studying mga 2016 yan. So I was studying the movements. Actually, during this time, I was predicting that FB at 108 was gonna outperform. Eventually, it went 350. Pero of course, now it's $130. Actually, Facebook is now trading at 10 times multiple. But this was a very strong outperformance here. In August 2013, if you buy the Facebook versus the Nasdaq, medyo yun yung outperformance. So there's an inherent resilience by checking the stock against the index to determine alpha. Also, may mga new high screeners. You take a look at that. Then, of course, if you recall, Warren Buffett in the 1987 crash, he said, focus on buying a good business at reasonable valuation because you get spectacular deals during a bear market. Hindi lang siya a great deal spectacular deal. This is how he got Coke in the 1987 crash. So he was not just settling idly by. He was waiting for that deep abyss to wait for a business that he's in love with to buy. So, of course, I would argue URC is the leader here. I can discuss what are my views on today's market. Iba na to no? So I was discussing movements. Pero nakita niyo ba yung charts na sinashare ko? Hala! Kanina pa ako nagkukwento. Hindi niyo pala nakikita yung charts ko, guys. Oh my gosh. You can see some of the charts or articles she's mentioning on her Twitter. Yeah, I shared it on Twitter. OMG. Kanina pa ako nagsasalita. I thought that I was sharing my charts to you guys. And, oh wow, hindi ko pala siya na-share. Ha, 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 ha. Ang stupid. Ganito siya, guys. Ganito siya. Oh, quick preview. Fast pace. Well, I can just upload this PDF. Yan yung mga charts, yan yung threads. Yan, ganyan siya. If you want to read it, if you want to read it. Okay. Ganito yung mga galaw. Ayan, DMCI, 5 centavo to 1 peso 20 cents. 24x. Ito si Globe. Ito si ICT. He bought it at 1 peso. Na nag 3 pesos, na nag 16 pesos, na we know today, di ba, it's 170 peso. He purchased it year 2001. He bought Globe at about 400 pesos. Parang trade niya to. He also bought PLDT. Niload up niya yan. Kita yan dito. Ayun Manulife, Sun Life, PMCI. Ito siya. How much was Globe Telecom? Ito. Yan. So, Jollibee. Massive buy siya sa Jollibee nung 9 pesos. Okay, so it was interesting to study the Philequity Fund because I've learned a lot of things. Obviously, in a bear market, everyone likes to talk, let's hide in Meralco, let's hide in PLDT and Globe because we get sufficient dividends to cushion the downside. But what I've learned actually was apparently to outperform in a decade of crisis is number one, well, you still have to understand you are in a challenging macro environment, but you also have to also take a look at which companies continue to execute to do well, no? So he saw the opportunity that even in a recession, people were eating fast food items in Jollibee. And when Jollibee was growing profits at 50% clip, and yet the PE ratio was 10 times, he made a really aggressive buy on Jollibee in that he made it a warrant pa. So nag-warrants siya ng Jollibee. Warrants is a way to purchase the shares without needing leverage. Kasi obviously, mahal ang interest during this time, 1997, 1998. That was Asian crisis. Mahal ang interest rates. So warrants was a cheap way to somehow had a stake in the share without borrowing money. So that was smart, actually. I felt that was a smart play. If you're gonna ask me, did I do this analysis on my own with his help? No, I just did it on my own. As in, I studied it for my sake, in the hopes of uncovering how do you outperform in an era as hard as 1994 to 2003. I also tried to study actually how Warren Buffett outperformed, especially during 1970 till 1983. So those are decades where dekada yan, 10 taon. If you say, bibilin ko na lang, hihintayin ko after 10 years, my problem is gone, that's not true. In decades where zero returns and people would just park their money in cash, you have to understand, is the company I'm owning executing well? If the profits are growing, okay lang. If you'll notice, he didn't sell his Jollibee. In fact, he grew it. He doubled it. Hindi mo man masabi dinoble niya, the warrants is enough to say, tinaasan niya yung exposure niya on Jollibee in the midst of a crisis. Of course, you can also notice, hindi ko alam kung na-notice niyo, ako na-notice ko, wala siyang property. So, he must have felt that in a 1997-1998 Asian financial crisis, delikado ang leverage. Delikado ang leverage kasi may mga companies na tumutumba dahil lang sa high interest rate payment. Diba? So, obviously, he tried to park in food. So, one thing that I could tell you, just, siguro naman, common sense, people will have to eat. But people don't need to buy real estate in a crisis. So, in terms of consumer staples being more resilient, not saying that it is immune. Obviously, it's not immune. It is resilient versus the other household expenditures. A lot of companies are gonna have their reports and earnings coming out. Next week sa USA, more than, roughly 1,000 companies are reporting. You've got Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Meta's gonna report. Coca-Cola's reporting, Kimberly-Clark. So there's a lot to uncover, guys. You can just follow me on Faces Trader. But what I can tell you guys is that in this marketplace, there are times that you really have to cut some costs, cut some losses if nakikita mo this company is likely to fall, if not fall further. Whereas this company, pag bumagsak to, this one is what I'll keep. So I'll give you an idea. Ano ba yung nasa utak ko? I'll send a PDF, don't worry. I'll share it. I'll just upload it in a slide share. And then, of course, I'll put my name para you can always follow Awesome 10X. I actually didn't know how many people would be appreciative of the content on Philippine markets. So I'm happy that you guys are listening. I'd love to share, actually that data is 2016. Hindi ko pa siya na-update for 2022. But I felt yung mga kwento ko noong 2016 saying that the Philippine market peaked at 2013 still relevant today, and in fact more relevant pa nga. And I think it's very helpful for everyone to know how to handle difficult markets. So actually, I was thinking kasi noong 2013 until 2022, walang mangyari sa Pilipinas. So parang nasa utak ko is walang mangyari sa Philippine market if you are just an index investor. So I lost confidence in the Philippines. I just felt that there's more headwinds. Yun. Either way, just to give you a backgrounder, so ito, Philippine market natin ngayon, PSEI na tayo, no? Index tayo. Fast forward to today. So, 8.1, I was predicting dito was the peak. Umangat pa tayo ng 9K. So, I felt that 8.1 was the peak. Hindi pa nga, nag-9,000 pa eh. But 10%, no? So, umangat pa ng 2018. That was the peak, eventual high, then all the way down. Share tayo charts. Chart. To. So I have actually more charts, no? So actually, nito pa nga, I was looking at the Philippine bond yield, signs of a gathering storm. Anong time na to, kasi 10-year bond yields mukhang magsa-spike. Yeah, anyway, interest rates are gonna go up. Okay, so ano implication? Ano implication ng lahat na pinagsabi natin ito? Usually 50% decline. So kung 9,000, minimum tong 4,500. Nasa 6,001 tayo ngayon. So this is still a sell zone. Whether 4,500 materializes, it may happen or it may not, but we should be careful because it is, I think, something that the world will be concerned about, diba? So delikado to be aggressive here. Okay, we learned about the 90% downside day rule. Nakakita tayo ng sharp drops of 12% days, diba? So hindi ko nga siya na-update, pero let's take a look at the one-day drop of the year 2020. Kahit tingnan lang natin ito, index, no, percentage drop. This drop in one day, ito, 7-8%. In one day, umangat ng more than 10%, di ba? So bumagsak, bumaba, umangat. So yan yung mga 90% downside days. Tapos bumagsak na naman dito, which was a 15% move in a day. Okay. Nakita niyo na yun, no? Nakita niyo yung 2020, may mga 15% moves in a day. Oh my God, di ba? Parang, oh my God, like, if you're telling me na hindi bababa ang index ng 4-5, Nikki, wala yan. I have to tell you the truth. Sir, tinignan niyo po ba yung 70 years ago, 30 years ago? Bumabagsak po tayo ng 10% in a single day. Pwede po mangyari yon. Let's just look back in 2020. We fell more than 10% in a single day. Now, I'm not trying to say na, magtago-tago na tayo kasi babagsak daw yung index, sabi ni ganyan. Of course, I don't know the future. Paano kung next year, natakot si Fed, mag-pause rates siya? Kasi nga, massive unemployment ang ginagawa ni Fed. Mawawalan ng jobs, hindi lang ang USA, pati mga Pilipino, pati mga European, lahat ng mundo. Tapos gusto pa ng China mag-invade ng Taiwan. As if there's no problem anymore. My God, di ba? So, okay. We're not trying to predict doomsday here. What we're trying to say is, if you have cash, if you have a job, pasalamat tayo may cash, may job. Kung wala tayong cash, wala tayong emergency cash, ano magagawa mo? Masasaktan man yung tao, mag-drop siya, mag-cut loss man siya ng Philippines, hindi naman niya kasalanan na I'd rather lose a left leg rather than my entire body. Di ba? I'd rather lose my left hand rather than my entire hands. Okay. So, knowing his story is really helpful. Pero may light in shining armor. The light at the end of the tunnel. Nakita niyo naman yung galaw. Hanep pala to. Hanep to. From 100 pesos globe, nag-700 pesos in 3 years time. Nakita mo yon? 700% return. 3 years time. Index was nothing. Jollibee, bantayan natin yan. Well, okay. Let's talk about why did he decide to buy Jollibee, Globe, PLDT? Dati po, guys, walang utang na dollar si Jollibee. So kahit na nag-Asian crisis ng kopong-kopong, hindi 26 pesos, nag-devalue 42, paki ni Jollibee. Bakit may utang ba ang dollar? Hindi, wala siyang utang. So, kung may liability man siya, in pesos. So ngayon, guys, pag-isipan ninyo. Sa Philippine economy, if you are borrowing in US dollar, patay ka if your dollar sales are not commensurate to your dollar liabilities. Okay, we also know that the world used to be self-sufficient when it comes to energy. Nowadays, obviously, away-away sila. So from a secular theme, kung year 2000s, ang secular theme is, let's do mobile connection, magandang business yung broadband, wireless, gandang business yan. Penetration rate ng Pilipinas, 100 million Filipinos. So there was a massive opportunity for PLDT and Globe. Di ba? I'm not saying that in the next 10 years, ay, ang galing, maging electric vehicles na ang Filipinos. Hindi. Tayo pa. Tingin ko sa Pilipinas, in the next 10 years, one thing that the Filipinos can do to grow the economy is the OFW remittances continues to be our main export, correct? These Filipinos are trained workers who will work whatever the USA people are doing in a remote country like this for like 70% cheaper, 50% cheaper in terms of costs. So if I was any company who needed to save up on my costing, I would always go towards the BPOs of the Filipinos. In terms of BPO, I'm not talking about just the chat group. Hindi yan chatbot. Dapat yung mga IT software engineers. Similar to what's happening to India, similar to what's happening to Vietnam. Let's trust that the Filipino workers are intelligent enough. Kung kaya nga nila mag-information disruption sa Facebook, kaya nila digital advertising and all. No? So I'm hoping that the OFWs and the Filipinos working here are social media savvy to the point that they would find digital marketing work wherever in the world. So that is a one secular trend that is positive. And what does that mean? The digital transformation of the workforce, the remote work, helps, again, PLDT and Globe. So, hindi lang yan dividend play. PLDT, Globe, and Converge. In fairness to Converge, no? So, what did we learn? Bumagsak so far, I haven't studied Converge, to be very fair. But if they are growing their market share, siguro pag bumagsak to ng all the way, sabihin na natin below, tingnan nga natin. I haven't been looking at this, actually. So, bumagsak na siya ng 19 pesos, nasa 12 pesos, new lows na pala siya. So, nag-break to. That means this is now the resistance. So, nag-breakdown yan. The new resistance is 13, new lows pa siya. Okay. Sabihin na natin, 80 to 90% drops for mga technology firms, no? Hindi ko pa to aralin pero speculative wise, kung yung growth stocks is the name of the game that Wilson C. made in 1994 to 2003, kung bumagsak to ng 70% or 80%, nandito yun sa level na to, no? So 70% na tong 13. Pag 80%, it's sabihin natin 90% na, isagad na natin. So, hindi natin alam kung magiging 8 pesos or 5 pesos tong Converge. Pero baka malamang magandang tingnan. Hindi ko pa sigurado. I'm just speculating here. Okay, and then also let's discuss. Kumakain ang tao, correct? So, if Modernisen drops something like 70% or 80% from its peak, that would be a great job to buy. So we were bearish here, 20 pesos. I'm not sure if mabibili natin to ng 70% down. Bantayan lang natin, pero bantay tayo dito sa 8 pesos or 7 pesos. Now, you might say, kagaguhan yung mga bottom fishing area na sinasabi ni Nikki. As you know, in a panic, nobody knows naman the bottom eh. Pwede natin sabihin 4.5, pwedeng 4,000, pwedeng 5,000, who knows, di ba? What would make the market panic? Dollar peso. Just recently, the gross international reserves of the Philippines depleted from 97B to $93 billion. And the Philippine peso may want to help the peso, but as long as our imports are greater than our exports, that will often be a question mark. Like, give me 1 year from now, if our imports continue to exceed our exports because we are a net importer, we will continue to deplete our dollar reserves. So it's not really a question of our spending, but our earning capacity, correct? We are a nation that needs oil. We are a nation that needs to import. We don't. I don't know if we will ever actually be able to export oil, but that is a question mark. That is a great thing. Like, I think I heard that Palawan, they're open to service exploration. If that were the case, great. We're gonna invest in that oil company if that is true. That is a big if. So we can't like talk about those ifs, no? Right now, it's also true that the cheaper peso is very positive towards one sector in the Philippines, tourism. So it may be possible that Cebu Pacific, if it falls so low, might actually be a bargain. Because, for all we know, might be the case, because this is already happening in the USA. American Airlines, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, these are profitable. Well, they are not necessarily profitable year on year, but they've recovered. They've recovered from the pandemic because tourism. If the peso is trading at 60 peso, and dati, the dollar was what, 50, 51? Ang laking savings nun for a USD, kunwari, retiree, kunwari, Amerikano siya, meron siyang $500,000. Umuwi siya dito sa Pilipinas, mag-sitting pretty siya dito, bumili siya ng lupain sa Pilipinas, mag-farming siya dito, at yayaman yung gagong yun. Simply because ang dami niyang pera as long as may cash flow siya in USD. And kung isang techie-yappy na mga crypto guys na gustong mag-land in the Philippines, I saw a tweet from somebody na Binance guys, like Changpeng Zhao was in Philippine Stock Index. I mean, the Philippines should welcome all of these investors. And if they want to go to the Philippines to consume, to spend, to invest, whatever they want to do, bring jobs to the Philippines, that is great for the economy. The economy needs earnings. Diba? At the end of the day, we want to earn dollars, but if we can't earn in dollars as much as possible, okay, let's earn in pesos, whatever it may be. And then we have to do our best to just cushion ourselves to help the Philippine economy by hopefully exporting. Sabihin na natin, export natin bananas. Ay, dapat lang. Mag-export tayo ng banana, mangga, whatever we want to export, pineapples, tropical country. I really don't know, but those are really small goods versus the entirety of the Filipino workforce that is really the big thing here. So I think that the critical arena is the critical workforce, labor workforce. We have a cheap labor workforce. We also have a cheap currency to introduce tourism into the Philippines. So hopefully our products will sell well abroad. I think a lot of Filipinos are packaging Filipino goods. Kung maimbento nyo ang lechon to abroad, great. I mean, let's do something for the Philippine economy. I think that's one thing. Yun lang. From a Filipino perspective, I think we have very little to do on our own. So sana wag rin mag-away-away. Kasi the Filipinos already have so much problems. Away-away pa eh. Raming mga retirees na nasa Pinas na foreigners just want the YouTube channel. Everyone has story, mga old guys. Yeah, that's great. I mean, para sa akin, yung mga retirees in abroad, kung gusto nila magpahinga sa Pilipinas, do so. Dalhin nila yung bikim dito nila. Dito sila mag-retire, mag-create sila ng mga kahit restaurant sa Pilipinas, hotel, mag-beach sila sa Siargao, whatever. So I've been hearing some people, di ba, mga foreigners, sayang, di ba, nagkaroon ng typhoon, nasira yung Siargao Island. I haven't been there to be fair. The typhoon Odette, di ba, was very bad for the Philippines. Pero I think ang isang saving grace ng Pilipinas is we do have the gods. God gave us beaches. God gave us great resources. So yeah, we should probably harness our travel destination for everyone na, hey, like promote to the world na for just 50,000 pesos, ang dami mo bibili, this is what you can do, blah, blah, blah. Lahat ng mga social media guys, imbentohin nyo na lahat ng gawin nyo para papuntahin lahat ng foreign money into the Philippines. Dito sila gumasta, wag sa Europe, wag sa Japan. Although, ako, sa totoo lang, cheap Japanese yen. Ngayon nga, ang Hong Kong, nagbigay na ata ng 500,000 tourists na free ticket to fly. I mean, pwedeng gawin ng Pilipinas yan. 1 million free tickets, bayaran ng dollar, bayaran ni Philippine Tourism para pumunta dito yung mga influencers, ikalat nila sa lahat ng mundo na ganito ang Palawan, ganito ang Boracay, ganito ang Bohol, ganito Cebu. That's something the Filipino Tourism Agency can probably do. Huwag na kayo mag-advertise. Bayaran mo yung flight ticket na. Dati nga si Anthony Bourdain pumunta dito. Magbigay ka ng free ticket sa isang celebrity, Brad Pitt, somebody like that. You know, big stars. I think sila Hyun Bin, mga Koreano, di ba, K-pops, magkagaling mga Pilipino, pumunta na dito si Son Ye-jin, dito siya mag-beach. I'm not saying, I know, I'm just thinking out loud, but really, an onslaught of tourists in the Philippines is gonna save our economy. It's probably gonna save our pesos rather than away-awayan natin sila na walang kwenta tong si ganyan, ganyan. Ayoko mag-away eh. Kailangan natin ng solution. I think it's just a solution to think about. Ayala Land is gonna have a problem in my view. If we study the 1997 to 1998 financial crisis, it takes a longer time for real estate to recover. There usually is a leverage involved in real estate, and loans might balloon, interest payments might rise unless that's fixed. But even if it's fixed, no, I think the problem is with higher interest rates looming, how much will those sales residential be on the future sense? Ang hirap. I mean, I think it's a tough time. I don't have an answer to that. Obviously, there will be values that people would bargain hunt upon. Pero yun, it's just too difficult to answer. So yun, it's been an hour. I've ranted quite a lot. Thank you very much for listening and hope you learned something. How did Wilson see of Philequity Fund 10x when PSEI fell 50%? In summary, he did this by investing in Globe, PLDT, he bought JFC, he bought ICT, he bought DMCI, he bought Preferreds. Did he buy and hold? Some he did, some he bought and sold. I mean, studying from the annual reports, he bought and sold some. Because in a decade like this, it's probably meant to be a buy and sell decade. You don't buy and hold. You need to know what to buy, when to buy, and when to sell. Yun. Bye-bye.